How many people watching this review remember those old Final Fantasy Tactics games? The one that on the PS1, then they went to like the Game Boy route with Advance and Advance 2. You guys know where I'm going with this. Any type of gameplay that even remotely goes into this type of game automatically has my attention. And got another one for you guys, man. It's actually made by the people who made Octopath Traveler. It's called Triangle Strategy. And I'm going to review it today. I played it on the Nintendo Switch. Took me about 70 hours to beat. That's right, 70 hours. It took me a minute to beat this game. And I want to go over everything that I learned about Triangle Strategy in the 70 hours it took to beat it. But before we get on with the review, you guys know how it is. Definitely hit that like button if you guys enjoyed the video. And you can always subscribe to the channel. We do weekly podcasts at 1 p.m. And without any further ado, here's my review on Triangle Strategy for the Nintendo Switch. What's going on, you guys? Lord Addict here, coming at you for another review. Today we're going to be reviewing Triangle Strategy for the Nintendo Switch. Now let's give it a little bit of backstory when it comes to me in these type of games. I grew up on a lot of Final Fantasy games, and Final Fantasy has a special place in my heart, for the most part, the older ones. But there was always one particular Final Fantasy game that imprinted on my soul, and that was Final Fantasy Tactics. I have beat this game so many times. So when I go to see a game that has similar type of gameplay on it, automatically catches my eye. When I saw Triangle Strategy a few months ago, I was like, yo, that is definitely looking like some kind of spiritual successor to Final Fantasy Tactics. I need that in my life. So obviously when this game came out, your boy had to grab it, man, you know. So we're reviewing it, I'm playing it, and I noticed that there is some stuff. Now, first thing we're going to talk about is the performance and the graphics. Performance on this, I can't sugarcoat it. Now look, was the performance horrible? No. I'm not going to come out here and say that it was unplayable or anything like that. For the most part, even though that the performance was a little bit on the lackluster side, it is kind of a turn-based grid style game, so it's not like the performance had to be all there. It's not like it was like some quick reflex type of game like Elden Ring or something. So that really helped it run on the Switch, where I wasn't really aggravated too much on it. But I do want you guys to know that I personally myself felt a lot of stuttering with this game. I felt, you know, sometimes the loading took a little bit too long that I'm willing to sit through, but I did it because it is the Switch and I enjoy this type of gameplay. Let's talk about the graphics and kind of the art style. I actually felt like Triangle Strategy did a very good job, and the people who made this, that this kind of art style is not going to go away anytime soon. 5 years from now, people are still going to remember this game because of the unique art style that they had. And I'm really grateful that they kind of went for this and not merely like a realistic approach, because when it comes to this type of art style, it's like I said, it lives up years down the line. And now, is it going to look pretty 5 years from now? No. The animations definitely are going to get passed up, but when you look at the vibrant colors and the way that the world really interacts, especially with the music, you know, we'll get into the music a little bit later, but all of these variables come together and they give you this really immersive experience. Now, let's talk about the animations that I brought up earlier. Now, look, there is some gameplay mechanics that we'll go over later on in the video where it's pretty much like you interact a lot with the animations because stuff is always going on depending on what you do in combat. And I felt like they did these animations really well. I felt like the ice looked really good on here, fire looked really good, and the lightning looked good. Like, they have a lot of elemental animations on here that I feel maybe isn't top key, but considering what type of game this is, it looked really nice when it was happening, and I don't really have anything bad to say about them. Especially the world that they built, the graphics that went into it, the music went into it. It all came together to make a very cohesive, kind of great story. They're like, look, you can nitpick certain things that happen on this story, but I don't think you could ever go out and say this story's bad. I felt like this story is like a Game of Thrones type of story, that there is always something on the line type of story. And I really enjoyed what was going on with it. Now, they had very good supporting characters. They had characters that's kind of like a mentor state, and they had characters that you look at that you know for a fact there's going to be beef in the future, but it's okay because the way they told the story and the way the story unfolded made sense. Nothing was out of chance. Like, they put everything in here for a specific reason. There's branching paths in this game. Think of a little bit like Mass Effect. Now, obviously nothing too dramatic as Mass Effect, but I will say that the branching paths do matter. And what I mean by they matter is you'll go through this kind of state where you have to talk to all the people that's there. You have to get their input on stuff, and you never do anything by yourself. Let me emphasize on that. It's very annoying sometimes, and it's not necessarily like a nitpick on the game. That's how good they did it, where I actually felt something on the line when I'm going to do these scale things. And what this scale mechanic in the game is the main people in your team all get a vote, and you have to go around and convince them that you need to go do this instead of that, or do that instead of this. Keep in mind, for the most part, it's usually pretty split between the teams. They always have like one person that's undecided, and then they'll have like 3 on each. Now, I never had a specific moment where we were tied going to somewhere, but I assume if you're tied going somewhere, you would yourself choose. Now, it kind of makes no sense that they would give everyone else a vote and you only get a vote unless there's a tie, and that's what I'm assuming. If you get a vote if there's a tie, I kind of felt like you should have got your own vote from the start. But it is pretty nice going around the town, collecting information that you can persuade your friends into finding out that you are bugging. We don't need to do this. And sometimes they give you actual life-threatening decisions, like what country you want to visit first, or maybe, you know, people are demanding your friend on a wooden stick and they want you to give him up, and you could choose whether or not you want to do that or not. And then there's some huge decisions on what country you're going to invade, who you're going to side with. All of these choices are in Triangle Strategy, and they're very vocal about you have to convince your friends that what you want to do is right. And after you get enough of them to agree with you, then you'll go through that path of the story. And sometimes you'll want to do something, but you can't convince all of your friends that that's the right thing to do, and you end up going the way they want to. But I do feel like in terms of the story, and you know how it goes, man, I'm always going to be 100% honest. I felt like the scaling, like I said, you should have got your own vote, because I felt like that kind of defeated the purpose. Why does everybody get a vote but me? And then I felt like maybe there's a little bit too much narrative in this game. Like, when you play games like Final Fantasy Tactics back in the old days, there was a good amount of fighting over storytelling. And I felt like this game in particular was way more on one side than the other. And I know, look, is it bad? No. There is a lot of good narrative focused stuff that goes on here. There's a lot of dialogue, and there's a lot of lore building up that goes into it. But sometimes I felt like I'm sitting there and I get on my phone while I'm listening and watching these scenes play out, and I'm just like, man, I wish I could just fight something. Sometimes they will literally fight in the scenes, and I'm like, why couldn't you just let me fight that person and lose it? That was what was supposed to happen. But you know what? I'm going to go out on a limb and say that this isn't really a huge issue with the game. It's just something that I noticed that they could have fixed a little bit. You know, just have a little bit more battles. That's all I think could have really happened to feel like the balance is better. Now, let's talk about gameplay. For those of you that have watched my reviews, you guys know that in my personal opinion, gameplay is king. Now, there are issues with this gameplay of this game, and I don't think it's anything drastic that make you look away from this game. It's just stuff that I would preferably preference over stuff that I would normally get on like Final Fantasy Tactics, or Fell Cell's another good game that has this style type of gameplay. Now, first off, let's go over the good stuff, because there's a lot of good stuff about this game in terms of gameplay. You got unique features that I've really not seen in any other type of these grid space games. You know how I was bringing up like the elements earlier and the animations? Well, the reason I feel like they went extra with that particular animation and that feature is because they implemented a feature in this game to where the elements actually matter. So let's say someone's coming at you on the field and you need to put a little bit of a barricade up just to give you enough time to maybe get your your action points up, or whatever they call it on here. It's pretty much like every magic ability has a certain action point. Once you get to 3, you could use that ability, but it takes it down. But you need a barrier right in front of you to put a little distance between you and him and make him waste the turn destroying the barricade before he gets to you. So what do? You get you a mage to cast some kind of ice barricade, and what it does is it literally makes an ice wall on the battlefield separating you from your opponent. Now let's say that you're done using this barricade and you've already got the things that you need, and you've got the amount of time required that you no longer need this ice thing blocking you. So you can have another mage cast fire on it and melt it to a puddle. Then let's say you got another major. There is one mage that has all of them for the most part, but let's say you have another mage that they got a lightning spell. You can actually electrocute the water and even possibly stun some of the enemies that comes into. Now, you don't even have to, create this engine. I do feel like they could have did a little bit better in terms of having mages that's more diverse, so you don't have to use so many people to set up these kind of plays. But let's say that there is just a giant fountain that's on the battlefield. If you cast lightning on that water in the fountain, and there so happens to be enemies in that fountain, they're going to not only take damage but risk being paralyzed for a couple turns. And trust me, this really helps. And what do I mean by this helps? This game can be hard sometimes, and I mean by that is they have this thing in here. Now, all the time when you play these type of games, when you start the battlefield and the enemies are on the battlefield, that's really all you got to deal with. But not in triangle strategy. You know what they do in triangle strategy? They believe in one word and one word only: reinforcements. They'll be having people coming from the left, the right, straight. You'll be thinking that you're good and you're about to beat the last couple people on the map. Bam, 5 more people show up. Sometimes it's very frustrating. And I would say that this is a little bit on one of those things where they don't necessarily make it harder. They just put the people on the field to outnumber you. But it doesn't make it bad. I just feel like people are saying that this game's hard. I don't necessarily agree with that, because I feel like something's hard when you make mechanics that make that encounter hard. Not when you just put more people on the field for you to fight, and that's not necessarily making something hard, just putting a little bit of fluff on it. Now, I don't think it's anything you get upset with, because they put a lot of stuff into this game to help even that out just a little bit. But I just wanted you guys to know that, look, sometimes if you don't play this on very easy or easy, because there is easy, very easy, normal, and hard. If you play it on very easy, you might have a lot better chance than I played. I played it on normal, and there was some times where I was actually fighting in these battles and I would barely lose. So I would go, train a little bit, come back a couple levels up higher, and I would normally have easier time doing these. But I want you guys to know that don't expect a walk in the park if you play this on normal or anything higher. One thing I want to point out about triangle strategy is the UI and whatever combat scenario you're doing. So if you look at the screen, the bottom part, that line is how everyone goes, that what turns they do, etc., etc. Now, the cool thing is it's real time. So if I do something like an ability called delaying strike that a character has, it will show you where they go from what on that down to what. So they'll go from let's say they go on turn 5, but then I do delaying strike. Now it will put up on the map that says they're going to go from turn 5 to turn 15. They're very informational, and I really enjoy that when it comes to telling me all the information I need and the consequences and the perks that can happen to what I do. When you attack someone, it tells you what they're going to go down to. It tells you the percentage that you have of hitting them, and if you go on back shots, you'll do more damage and way bigger chance of critical attacks, and you'll pretty much have a guaranteed hit if you do any back shots on them. And the crazy part is if you have someone on each side of someone, so let's say someone's in front of them and someone's behind them, or someone's left of them and someone's right of them, and they attack while you have someone else on the other side of that enemy, the person of your ally on the other side of that enemy is going to hit him again. And this can be used extremely good, especially like I said, you get outnumbered all the time. But if you get really 2 stealth-like units, or maybe 2 power units that just do a lot of damage, and you get them on each side, you can kill enemies pretty fast. And I think that's the way that the people who made Triangle Strategy really expected you to play this game. They wanted you to be very aggressive and very defensive at the same time. And then you got units like Anna, that's an assassination unit, that she kind of does a little bit of both. What I like about her is you can actually go stealth and you can go invisible, go up a little bit. You'll see someone, and what I like to do on there is either like throw a poison and then run away, or I would like to like throw a poison and then use her second action that she gets and put them to sleep. And this little combos like that I feel like set triangle strategy apart from games like Final Fantasy Tactics. Now let's talk about the stuff that I personally didn't like. Now, they have equipment on here to where you have to upgrade your equipment from, you know, kind of you need a certain material and then you can upgrade like your health from that sword. I don't like when you upgrade attributes on a sword-based style gameplay. I've never liked that. And look, technically you are crafting weapons on here, but I don't think it's really to the point where I would like. I'm very big fan on having a job system in these type of games. In Final Fantasy Tactics, in triangle strategy, I like a job system that I can determine who I want to be what and who I want to be this. If I want you to be a black mage, you to be an archer, I feel like they should give me that option. I don't think that's going to take away from the overall gameplay of this either. And then you take it to the equipment, instead of like putting some type of ability page where you actually level up that job thing, because that's what people loved about the old Final Fantasy Tactics and this type of gameplay in general, is they like getting some abilities from other classes and cross getting skills where you can like be a samurai or something, and you can have dual wielding that you got from the ninja class, and that's kind of like completely out of this game. And I don't know why they went the direction they did. Now look, the system works well, and I'm not going to say it doesn't, but I do feel like if they ever make a sequel to this, just let us make our own classes and do a little bit better job when it comes to that weapon system. I don't want to upgrade something in my weapon system to give me more HP. That makes no sense to me. Do a better job in giving yourself attributes that doesn't involve a weapon. I get it that, you know, maybe it's just me. Maybe some of you guys like this system, and I'm not saying it's bad. Like I said, it did its job. I just felt like they could have done better. Now, let's talk about the world map on here. When I say world map, the lack of a world map. How they pretty much went into this game is you have something that's called like an enchantment. Now, what an enchantment camp is pretty much like, it's kind of where your people are set place and where you are during the time of this game, because you are a nation that's always going to war with people. So you have this little encampment champ that you go enchantment camp. Man, I'm just butchering stuff today. So you're in this little camp and you can go to a merchant, you can upgrade your jobs, which, you know, like I said, you can't necessarily pick what job you want, but you can upgrade those jobs. And that's really nice to have. But like I said, I would have preferred just to pick my job and to level up that job with some kind of job points or something. But, you know, I understand that every game can't be Final Fantasy Tactics. And what this game did is it did set itself apart. But I felt like the biggest disappointment is the camp in this game, because I felt they used this as a crutch to not really build a world map. And what I mean by that is they don't really build up these towns. You really go to them once, you do some like generic patrol thing, and sometimes there'll be a merchant there, and it's not even every time there'll be a merchant there. But I would have preferred to be able to, you know, click on the map, go to these towns, be able to purchase stuff from the merchants in these towns, and go back and do it again as long as my relationship with that nation is good. Now, obviously, what they did here is they wanted to make it a little bit more casualized to where you can always get what you need in the encampment. Now, what the encampment has is you can buy stuff with this other currency that you can use in the game. Now, let's talk about this weird ability set. Now, for the most part, you guys know that there's always been a way to revive your allies in these type of games. You know, in Final Fantasy Tactics, it was the Phoenix Downs. There's always been a way to do that. Now, they kind of went away from that. There are abilities to make it to where, like, auto life, if you go down, you automatically get revived. But for the most part, the only way to actually revive your units is use this weird currency in the game. And it's not just reviving. You can actually give, you know, battle points to people. You can move people, like a magical portal pops up and they go to another part of the map where you tell them to go to. You can heal people. I don't like this system at all. If they make a sequel, get rid of this, because I think it kind of defeats the purpose of items. Let me buy stuff that lets me revive people. There's no permadeath in this game for some reason. There should be permadeath in these type of games to give you that you only got 3 to 4 turns to get to this person. You might lose this person if you don't get to him. You need to revive him. You need to heal him. I didn't feel like there was ever a time where I couldn't just send someone on a suicide mission to hold people back long enough for me to build up abilities. There was nothing like that going on. If people went down, they just went back to the camp, and you could revive them with the special currency, but you can only really do that once or twice. Now, there is a lot of good, unique things you can use with this system, but I feel like this system's kind of flawed for the most part, and I would prefer them just to get rid of it entirely. One of the things I've always enjoyed doing in these type of games is the patrol missions, where you go around the map and you fight these random encounters and you just level up. You kind of fight new adds as well. You fight new creatures, new monsters, new actual units in general. That isn't in this game. They actually have something called mental mock battles. And what a mental mock battle is you go to a person that's in the encampment camp and you talk to them and they're like, yo, we have these magical fights that you have in your head pretty much that have no real consequences on the map, on the game in general at all. And that's how you're going to level up your characters, and you're going to use the same level up stuff. You can get money from it. Somehow you get money from doing mental mock battles. I don't understand that. I would have preferred them just to get rid of this and do regular patrol missions, but that's just me. Now, I think the camp itself, like I said, I think it was a crutch. I think it was something they used to not really enhance a kind of a world map. They didn't really use it to make unique battles, because these mental mock battles, they're all predetermined, so you're always going to fight the same units in the same category, and for the most part, if you literally do everything you normally do, they will do everything they normally do, so you can really get a good sense on how these people fight. It's nothing bad. Like I said, it worked. It did work. I didn't really have a huge issue with it, and I feel like when you do go about and you get into a crazy situation where you're underleveled, and you can go back to these mental mock battles, you can just play a few of them and level up. Is it bad? No, but I do feel like they could have done better, get a world map and have patrol missions where people just randomly show up. But I get it, this is a good alternative. I just felt like they could have did better. And the last thing I really have to talk about is the music. Now, the music in this game, it's pretty much what you would expect from these type of games. They always very hit it out the park when it comes to the music. What I like about this is it really sets the tone. You'll be sitting there fighting, and it will get more epic the more people you lose. If enemy shows up on the other team that's more powerful than you normally fight, like a commander or something like that, the music will change for that scenario too. The music will change if there's reinforcement, which is, like I said, there's music's going to change all the time because they be doing random stuff in this game periodically for the most part. And I don't think you're going to have any issues with the music. I sure didn't. So I'm sure you've watched this review, and the first question you have is, Addict, should I buy this game? And that is kind of complicated. Now, I will say that if you like these type of games and you don't really mind putting the $60 down, go out there and buy it. I think you're going to be very satisfied with it. It's got a good replayability because, like I said earlier, depending on what kind of pass you take, you get different characters in the game. So you can replay this game multiple times, and you have to get certain characters in the game. So that gives it a lot of replay value, and I think that it is worth the $60 if you like these type of games. Now, this is a decent game to get into if you are new to this type of genre. And keep in mind that, Final Fantasy Tactics, there was a lot of mechanics on there that made the game hard, but they do casualize this game to a point. Now, it is hard in terms of sometimes they'll overwhelm you with characters, but you can do those mental mock battles over and over again and get really over leveled. So it kind of like balances out a little bit. I would say this is worth the $60, especially on the Switch because it's portable. Now, I would prefer to wait to something like Steam or the Xbox or PlayStation because you have better performance in general over there. But if you guys went out and bought this for a full $60, I think if you like these type of games, you're going to be satisfied with this game. It's because, look, the story is fantastic. The gameplay, although it's got its little issues with me personally, it is still a good, solid foundation for gameplay on here. And the graphics are good. There's nothing really wrong with this game. Just a lot of nitpicks from me and personal things that I was disappointed with it. But I would recommend it. I definitely have to on the Switch. If you got a Switch and you like those type of Final Fantasy Tactics games, I would recommend this game. It is $60, like I said. I think $40 would have been a better price point for this game, but who am I to tell the people what the price they own game at? So like I said, it's worth $60 if you like these type of games. But anyway, that's the review for Triangle Strategy for the Nintendo Switch. I enjoyed this game a lot. I put, like I said, 70 hours into the game. And if it was bad, I would have told you. I would have put 15 hours in this game and I would have been ranting on Twitter about it. But I put the whole playthrough, and I even started a second playthrough. You guys have no idea how hard it is for me to start a game twice. And I did it. So that tells you, screams volumes on how replayability this game is. But anyway, that's the review, guys. And until next time, this is Lord Addict. I'm out of here. Peace.